Hello, hello, hello. Tonight is Monday night. It's November 18th, 2024, and it has been quite a week. And at least for me, when it rains, it pours. I tell you, it's still kind of pouring. It's kind of pouring. So, anyway, I want to give people time to come on. This is the Adroit Living session of the Erudition Network. Here, I like to address mental health in a holistic manner where I talk about um, various things, aspects that a lot of people have classified as non-essential to human um, behavior and mental health. And I've appreciated how some people have really started to, examine that and go a little deeper into it. And now more professionals are joining in and reaching people where they are via remote health and mental health care. So I really appreciate that. And it's like more than what I could have ever imagined, really. But anyway, I really appreciate it. And I'm so happy that more people are getting access to help. But again, we got to help ourselves, right? Before we can ever get to a professional for help. So as I wait for more people to come in, because this is an interactive podcast, you can ask questions, you can comment, you can like, subscribe, and share. Ring the bell for notifications so you will know the next time I come on, because this is my volunteer effort to try to be more helpful in a different platform, a more used platform. I'm more of a background person, so more than anything, the camera, the lights, and all of that, it really makes me nervous. So I have to read sometimes, so y'all have to overlook my reading, my notes or whatever. But yeah, it's like that sometimes. Okay, so as an icebreaker, I had this memory that I had recalled this week, and I was fondly remembering my elders um, with a lot of joy, because it carries me through things like times when I miss them. Um, Being a military personnel, I miss people a lot more than I've ever conveyed, because I don't want to make people feel bad. I don't want to feel bad. But anyway, it's that's just life. But I recall Apostle Richard Daniel Hinton. Every time he would see me, he would always say, he would just stare at me, and then I'm like, and he'll say, "Man, you look just like your mother." I didn't really understand that kind of thing back then. I would just laugh and say, "Oh, okay," because you don't never see it yourself, that you look like your parents, like exactly like them. And since losing my dad, this is a year now. People look at me and they say things like, "Oh, you look just like your daddy. Oh, you sound just like your daddy." I think it's a tribute to the person, especially once they passed, that they left, somebody behind that, reminds everybody that that person was here. So that's kind of cool. But anyway, Apostle, my mother was not passed, but he would always ask me after he would say that, he would say, "Where is your mother? Man, you look just like your mother." And then I would say, wherever she is, I'll tell him where she is. But it would always it bring like a fun memory, because when I left home for the military, I would come back home, and every now and again he would be around, and I would see him, and I would say hi, and then he would still yet again stare at me, and just in amazement that I look so much like my mom. But I miss him. Um, I had no idea, the purpose in making, um, different decisions that I made in life. A lot of times I did not want to do the things that I did. Have you ever had that situation where you was like, "Man, I'm doing things I really don't like or don't want to do," and it's like, I'm gonna do it because you acquiescing to what somebody else asked you to do. Hey, Sean Anthony, thank you for joining. Please stay tuned, ask questions and comment. Hey, little bro, how you doing? Yeah, you look like your daddy too. I'm just saying, y'all, y'all have no idea, but it brings fun memories of people that's passed and you really love and you miss them. But in this show, I wanted to bring up a few points because I want to make it very clear. You know, people twist the narrative, and a lot of people want it to make sense. I didn't start out this way, the way that I ended up doing these podcasts and trying to make these things make sense to the viewers. I had no idea the purpose in making me abhor school was because that's where I would be the most of a blessing to help people who needed help. I was like, so I really hated school. Like, abhor means you hate it with a great passion. Like, you can't even convey how much you hate it. And imagine that here I am, and school is just what I do. School is where I've been for so many years. I've been blessed to help people in many different places, but none more than in schools. Now I understand why sensible things sound like babble to some people. So I feel challenged to, you know, I put out there for other people to watch my show at least 3 times, each time having a different perspective so that you can kind of like clear the way for, yeah, sometimes things, it don't make sense, but we don't understand why. I try to convey it on this show. A lot of times it's because when we went to a brick and mortar school, we were conditioned to do and behave and think in a particular way. And it's like now, some things just don't make sense to us when it's outside of that conditioned training. But um, when I said the challenge for people to watch the videos a few times, each having a different perspective, is for you to trigger whatever is trying to help you to understand and to clarify things. Because yes, when you were being trained, it was a bit of a twist of a narrative, and it was for a purpose. And I tried to explain what that purpose is. I wrote a book that's so different. Um, Watch what it does over time if you read it. Once you read it, you got to watch what it does over time. Take 2 days to read it, then revisit and read it as many times as you need. Psychology is the study of the human mind and behavior for a reason. And the book that I was blessed to write will help to recondition a lot of that was conditioned so that things will make a lot more sense. But you might have to read it. Just take 2 days to read it and then just let it sink in. Just let it sink in. Someone asked me, who are you? Someone said, who do you think you are? They turned to their neighbor and asked, who is she? Who does she think that she is? I didn't really have an answer. But I would like to now say that the answer that I gave then was, I'm just a nobody trying to tell somebody about, trying to tell everybody about somebody who can help everybody, because a lot of people want help. We all want help. I want help. So I'm just saying, but I got a more accurate answer than I'll ever that I'll answer more. Now it answers far more questions than just the one on the surface. It answers the questions that were implicated when people were asking who she thinks she is. Well, um, I am humble and willing. That's all. I'm just humble and willing. And that answer informs and it answers exactly what you asked. I am humble and willing. So if you ever look and you ask the question because you want to like follow and, be whatever it is you thought you saw in me, and you thought, oh, well, she thinks she's somebody. No, just be humble and willing. And whatever you saw in me that maybe you envied or liked, you can get it too. That's all I'm saying. Get the book. Get my book, Generational Wealth, Information and Symmetry, and Your Success. It's available on lulu.com. It's available on Amazon, and you can ask for it wherever books are sold. Trust, it will help answer a whole lot of questions that you may have had if you've ever watched my show or if you ever read any of my academic writings. But the purpose is to get the message, not the messenger. You don't have to get me. Don't try to understand me. Just get the message. Focus on the message. You see, the messenger is always sent and seen in unseen ways, known and unknown ways, now and later and throughout time, because no one will be able to say they didn't know. So it's not about the messenger, it's about the message. And when you focus too much on who's saying what, that's a problem. And it's a distraction. And you want to justify looking at the person that's saying it, and it's like, no, that wasn't the purpose. That wasn't the objective. Hey, Eddie, thank you for joining. Please feel free to comment. So stop trying to create a challenge of not knowing. You'll lose your mind, but you'll still be knowing. You'll be told you don't understand because you were purposely not taught, purposely misled, purposely fooled, purposely made to choose to act like you did not know when you knowingly did wrong against better judgment. But you will know, regardless of, how some people say, in order to forgive somebody, you have to forget. And full well you didn't forget, but you will lie because everybody said that that's the way things are supposed to go. No, don't do that. It is far greater to exhibit the facts as is so that you can be trusted. It is more honorable. Like, yeah, I know what you did. I remember what you did, but we're going to move past that and we're going to start over. But knowing, not acting like we don't know, we're going to do so knowingly. But anyway, here to the narrative, to the topic of the show. I don't set out to make these podcasts to be overemphasizing any particular faith. But from all of the years of study, I concluded these things that I'm trying to help with clarity and provide information so that other people, even like me, people who are in the background are like, man, I just can't deal with this anymore. I wish it was something more I could do. But a lot of people don't want to come back come out from the background. I didn't either. I'm just saying. But I want to say, if you watch the show, it's like a lot of times I explain some things, but it's like we really have to get past our apprehensions of being in the background and staying in the background. Come on out and say something. So I wanted to say, from my observations in the background, I saw that it's really funny to me how the book of Ephesians chapter 5, verses 22 through 24 says, just as the church is subject to Christ, so let the wives be their own husbands in everything. Be to their own husbands in everything. And it's like, how often do you see a church subject to Christ? So think about that. Go back to the thing and think about that and see how we see all these viral vines going. We seeing it. I know you seeing it. We all laughing. They have a whole podcast dedicated to overemphasizing the irony and joking about, like how often do you see the church? So when you look at a wife and you're like, man, that woman is not right. I'm just saying, the book of Ephesians tell us how we're supposed to act just before it gets to the final books of Revelation, where it's like, man, don't you wish you would have listened? All of them books before, don't you wish you would have listened? But it's like it's wrapping it up and saying this is how everybody should be so that we can understand moving forward. Before we get to that part where we're like, man, I wish I would have listened. But before that chapter, before that verse, in chapter 5, verse 11, it says, reprove darkness, believer. So it's like a person who believes, especially these heads of church, they're supposed to say, yeah, that's not right. And they're supposed to turn from it. If you go to the book of Proverbs, where it's telling you all these wise things that you're supposed to do, it's like you're supposed to turn away from it, cross the street, go in the opposite direction, don't even be in that vicinity. And now we can really see why, because when you're in the vicinity as a bystander, you can succumb to a stray problem that you didn't see coming and you didn't deserve. But the purpose of me saying this is you'd imagine the heads of church are believers, yet viral vines show many of the heads of church should be reproved, but they are. Furthermore, it's funny how it started, how the book of Ephesians stated, husbands, love your wives as Christ loved the church and gave himself for it. It's funny how we emphasized loved as in the past tense. I would imagine this past tense because it's like, man, you're not reciprocating that love. That love is lost. And even as the wives are trying to love as they supposed to, as I mentioned a moment ago, rewind it a little bit. It's like everything is happening the way it's happening. It's like, why is it happening that way? Well, because of this. And if you was to read it, you would see that, oh, now it's starting to make sense. A lot of times we don't think we'll be able to make sense of things because people told us, well, if you read this, you won't understand it. You'll understand it. It's written so that even a fool can understand it. And that's what it said. So there's that part. So what was the twist of narrative for it to say that you won't understand? The twist of the narrative was purposeful so that you wouldn't read, so that you wouldn't exercise your own ability to understand things, but you would listen and you would follow. And then you would have those same people who told you to listen and follow turn around later and tell you how you're uneducated, how you don't know nothing. I'm just saying, because it was done and it's being done. You got to watch it for yourself. But I'm just saying, it's in that particular book, it says, men, love your wives as your own body. When have you ever seen, even the believers in the church, it's very rare that you find a husband who is loving his wife as his own body, because you see a lot of the heads of the church, they sitting there, they're down talking the women. And we've seen that in this current event where the women are put up under so far, so much that it's like, would you do that to your own body? Are you loving her the way you love your own body? She's your helpmeet. She is everything that you are, especially when you can't be what you need to be. She's your strength when you're weak. She's the love when you can't find a reason to love. She's everything you need her to be. But you're not treating her with the respect that you yourself know that you want and you feel like you deserve and you earn. I'm just saying, because while men are supposed to be loving their wives as their own body, where we are meanwhile seeing clearly that the church leaders speak against women, keeping women down, which is not man as unto man's wife. It's not done. It's not supposed to be. And it's like when we're sitting there, we're in these services or we're watching these things on whatever platform we're watching it, TV or social media, it's clicking to us. It's like, man, something about that don't make sense. something about that's not right. It's because the twist of the narrative is triggering your ability to discern something ain't right. Something's wrong. Go with it. Don't keep going against it. Hey, Jackie, this sister right here, she has a way with words and stating things and phrases that's like, wow, I didn't think about it before. A lot of times she gives comments and it has far more implications than what I emphasize in the moment. And then I think about it later and I'm like, man, I wish I would have elaborated on that point just a little bit better in the moment. I get really focused on what I'm doing and trying to hurry up and get through it because that's what I planned for. And I'm like, well, I got to do, I got to complete this task, but I should slow down just a bit so that I can elaborate on the things that need to be elaborated on. So I'm practicing that. I'm practicing. So thanks, Jackie. I'm just saying that's why I try to go back because a lot of times I'm overly focused, but it's because I'm nervous. When I'm nervous, I really start, let me just get through this. Let me do this. But anyway, as I was saying, the book of Ephesians was written shortly before the book of Revelations. Can you see what's coming now? So now that you're saying, well, what's the twist of the narrative? Do you understand the twist of the narrative was to distract, to keep you busy so that you lose out towards the end? It's not, it's like people feel like it's a race, like it's not enough room in heaven or something. I don't know. I'm just saying. Can you see what's coming? The reason, okay, so you have these books, and in these books it's like, okay, that's relative to the last book, okay, that book is relative to the last book, but all of it's in one book. All of these books can be found in a single book, and that's important to understand. And the relative facts to why that's important, it's important because if you think about it, those books were the first books where you have empirical studies, meaning these are lived experiences. And it's like a seminal literature, meaning this is why you're doing what you're doing and why this makes sense. So it's like, why are you not understanding, but you are understanding that there's something wrong, there's something that it doesn't make sense, and somebody's twisting the narrative. So yeah, I know, and I love that you're participating. Uh, it's so much better with you. I'm telling you, I'm just one person, and this is not what I do. I'm just trying it, doing the best I can. That's all I can do. But I really appreciate you. But anyway, it's like because some people in the church seem to be too closely mimicking the world. That's what we're seeing, as opposed to it being different or it being the church is mimicking Christ or Christ-like or um, exhibiting the foundation or the objective is to believe in God and follow what God would have for you to do and tell you how to hone in on discerning what that is. Yes, you can. Yes, it is there. I'm just saying because Jesus already paved the way for you to be able to understand that. And he told you, and he kept saying it so many times in the Bible. It was like, I came to show you that this is how this happens. This is the way. So you don't need a clergy person to tell you because I am the vehicle. I'm the microphone. I'm the go-between. All you have to do is just say in my name, call God in my name, and then he will answer because you don't have to sacrifice lambs or anything like that. Just call my name and he will hear you. A lot of people don't do that until they're in an extreme dire need where their life is on the line or someone that they love whose life is on the line. But we're seeing instead in the church because a lot of times people go into these faith-based institutions and they're like, I'm looking for you to tell me what to do. That's not what it was for. It was so that you all can get together and tell your story of how God is helping you and how he's moving in your life and what he's done. And but I understand. It's confusing because a lot of people didn't read the book. A lot of people aren't understanding that your lack of understanding derived from the fact that you didn't read that book, and you didn't read it for many reasons, but it's not there to bring shame on you that you didn't read it, or bring shame on you that you're doing things wrong, or make you feel bad in any kind of way. It's only to inform. It's there to inform you. It's like people say, or they believe, because sometimes they'll tell you, well, God don't see me. I'm just gonna do what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna do me. He don't see me. He don't know what I'm doing. Yes, he does. He see you. He know what you do. Oh, excuse me. He know what you're doing, and he permits it. And it's like, what do you mean? God permits me to do wrong? Yeah, you got free will. It's only people who try to control you so that you don't do whatever you want to do, so that they can be the reason why you didn't do it because you were obligated. Where God compels the spirit, and the spirit is what moves you to do, behave, or not. But I'm just saying, people twisting the narrative was the objective after learning people just willing to give up. It's like when you say, I'm not going to read for myself. I'd rather you tell me, or you're not going to fact check. Think about it. A lot of people were going to these faith-based institutions and listening to these people preaching, and they would tell them, the preacher up there, turn to your Bible and all this, that, and the third, right? And then they'll tell you, turn to your neighbor after they done preach from the Bible. Turn to your neighbor and say X, Y, Z, and you would just do that call and response. Now listen to my videos where I talk about call and response. But in doing so, it's triggering an understanding. It's signaling that this is what you will do, despite the fact that you just read for yourself, but you still going to do what you're told to do. So a lot of times people are not challenging their understanding just because they want to go along and get along with who said whatever they said. That's a part of the problem that has gotten the twisting of the narrative so popular. The reason why a lot of people are like, well, make things make sense. And they're asking for it to make sense because they are aware it doesn't make sense. So if they weren't aware that it doesn't make sense, it would be a different story. But they are aware, and because they're aware, it's getting real dangerous out here. It's getting real scary out here. Things are happening in ways that it's like, man, wasn't that avoidable? What are we doing? What'd you say, Jackie? That's how you missed the mark when you study starts. Yes. And a lot of times people don't understand what studying to show yourself approved means. Binge watch a couple of my episodes. It'll help you. And Eddie does some really helpful shows on Thursdays that give you information and where to find the information. I'm telling you where to find the information too, but it's like we don't know what we don't know. So when we learn the information that, oh, I'm lacking that, go find out now. Go find out, and here is how. Here is why. This is the way. And a lot of people can tell you, oh yeah, I don't know. I'm not going to understand. I could tell you I didn't understand because I didn't want to understand. I didn't want to learn. I didn't want to study. I hate school. I hate school with such a passion that is really, really, really funny that God, he must get jokes. I promise you, for real. Because everything that I've done has been in academia, more rooted in academia than in anything else. And it really is ironic and maddening. I'm just saying. But it's not because I'm intellectual. And then that was another thing. It was like, wow, as much as I hate school, but here I am in these books under the name listed as a scholar, as an academic scholar. I'm like, oh, you funny, you funny. I know it wasn't me. It was the fact that I'm looking for God, but even in my unbelief, and even though I didn't start with the whole, oh, I believe in, all of this and all of how these people are going around, they prophesied and they doing all this extra, it just seemed extra, you know, you prophesy, you telling people what to do and all this and that and the third. And it's like, man, what, I don't understand that. I don't get it. And because I don't get it, I'm not listening. And I was hearing it, but I wasn't heeding it. And then in my studies, I kept seeing it. And I was like, man, that's funny. And then I didn't know that I was repeating it. And the academics were always like, well, can you tell me how you can get this conclusion without putting God in it? And I'm like, I tried, but you see the results you got? Yeah. So I couldn't eliminate it. There was no other way. There was no other stimulus that provided this result. So this is the answer. I can't take it back. And I wish I could, but I can't because I'm old school. I was taught research in the old school way where you report what you see. You don't you don't alter it, because if you alter it, you cannot replicate it again. So that really defeats the whole purpose of saying this is my research, this is the study, and this is the outcome, because it's not true. And it's like, oh, is that why the twisting of the narrative just doesn't work? Not even in science, let alone in word of mouth when you telling people? No, it doesn't. But when you have it in word of mouth where you telling people, and you contriving in schools to develop this particular methodology, and it's like, and to perpetuate it, it's like, what's gonna happen? So what you gonna do? Well, where we are right now with mental health, where we are right now with things not making sense, and everybody's like, well, why does it not make sense? Don't worry about it. Don't worry about it. Try to get an understanding for yourself, and then trust. You have to understand something gonna happen, because there's never ever been an example in any books that I've ever read, any studies I've ever read. I don't care if it was Oxford, which is the highest level of brick and mortar education that you can get. Their scholars go out and write books, and they conduct studies, and the world eats on that. You know what I'm saying? So it's like, I've never seen anything to include in any sacred book where it did not show you there's nothing new under the sun. Everything is so repetitive. It's like, why didn't I understand that? Why? That's why the repetition, because it understands that a lot of people not gonna understand, but it's telling you, you will understand whether you admit it, whether you heed it or not. You gonna know. You gonna know. But I'm just saying, there's never been a time where I read anything and it didn't revert right back to what I learned from reading the Bible. And that's why I'm saying that, like, the Bible can be like the original empirical study, the seminal studies. It can show you things and help you to understand, because when you go somewhere else and you try to say, okay, well, church has its place, I'm gonna keep it there. Faith has its place, I'm gonna keep it there. And then you go out and you try to separate your life and separate your behaviors from that. You cannot. In my opinion, when I look over history and I see how Columbus came in here to America, and all the people migrated here because they wanted to avoid a monarchy, and they wanted to avoid the faith-based practices in which a lot of those other countries were deeply rooted, and they behaved and acted on those. They came over here to avoid that, to see, can we make it work without it? And it's like, didn't they try that with the Tower of Babel? I'm just saying. It's repetitive. It's like people were like, I want to get to heaven without God helping me or making it happen for me. He's allowed me to act on free will, and I can do whatever I want. So I'm going to try to make this work without him actually having to intervene. So they started to build this tower. And as they're building this tower with this objective in mind and this in their heart, God was like, oh, y'all think y'all gonna cut me out? It's like you doing a deal, right? And it's like, we'll get back to the Tower of Babel. So what God did was he made their speech babble, so they didn't understand one another, so they couldn't collaborate effectively for the purpose they were all united for. It's just like when somebody's cutting a deal, and there's three people There's the importer, the exporter, and the middleman who connects those two people together. And they say, well, we're going to cut out the middleman who connects the two people trying to make this exchange. We're going to cut the middleman out because we don't need them. We can find the person ourselves. And it's like, yeah, you tried that, but it didn't work out. You need all the parts. So it's shown in many ways, like when God said, part the shadow, the darkness from the light. And people look at it like, I don't see no light in the dark. What are you talking about? And then it starts to happen because God is not a man that he can lie. As he speaks it, even though it doesn't exist, as he is speaking it, it begins to reveal that it does exist. You just couldn't see it. You were leaning to your own understanding, so you couldn't see it. And that's why we don't try to make sense of the phenomenon that is God. We look at it as, oh, my good is going to control what God does in my life and anybody else. That's not true. You lean into your own understanding. But the purpose of you doing the right thing is to be in good standing so that, hey, when grace is needed, you will have it, even though you don't deserve it. But because you were making the honest effort, you got it. And it's like a lot of times we don't understand how that's a strong correlation with all the things that we're doing when we're trying to work, when we're trying to study as a student, whether you're in school or you're in the workplace learning OJT, learning on the job training, when you're trying to improve your knowledge, skills, and ability on in the workplace, when you're doing all these things, it's like there's studies that's out here and it shows that, yeah, every time we try to conduct a study to find out what was the stimulus that caused this particular outcome, they can't track it, and then they diagnose it, they classify it as a phenomenon. It's a phenomenon because it was something that occurred that cannot be controlled. And if you continue to read the Bible, you'll kind of see it. Like every time anybody tried to control what God did, it didn't happen that way. Like when people tried to, control what Jesus was doing, it didn't happen that way. He did some things that were really unorthodox for the time, but it transcended time. And it's like these are the empirical works that we have so that we can base our root our understanding on why these things are happening and how to make it happen when we want it to happen. But we can't control the intricacies of it. We just understand that if we keep trying in this manner, then it'll work in turn for our good, even the bad things. What you say, Jackie? I'm learning. Oh, wait. Let me see. Sorry. I'm learning at my own age. I know it don't matter your age, my sister. Trust. I promise you. I had to pray a lot in order to get the understanding that I have. But I totally understand you being humble at your ripe age. We learn from what God said to us. Things can become repetitive until you need. You're right. A lot of things that happen when we're not getting the message and we're not heeding it, it can be repetitive because it's necessary for our growth. So, and yeah, you're right. It's relative to us continuing to grow. And it's not just in God. God loves us, but he wants to see us grow. And when we get there, we're going to learn that God blessed us because it makes him happy that we get what he has for us. And nobody knows man's heart. And that's why a lot of times we don't even see the spontaneous change coming. So yeah, you're right. In all our ways, acknowledge him because he's going to help you. And in that, he's going to have to turn some things in your favor because a lot of these twists of narratives are coming along to distract you. And you don't even know why the narrative is being twisted. You don't know why it said, well, Karen was the fairest woman in the land. But now we've twisted the narrative and turned the word Karen into the most vile and despicable female name you can ever speak or dare to mention. I'm just saying, twisting the narrative was the objective, after learning, people must be willing to give up. You can't give up your free will. They can't take it, rather. They can't take your free will from you. You have to be willing to give it up. Does that make sense now? The reason for referencing the Bible is the oldest empirical seminal study exhibiting facts we can apply to improve mental health and to date. Never has there been this 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 much imbalance in mental health in history. Is there a celebration or mental health and people stand too far from the facts stating in the Bible and other sacred unaltered books of faith? And that's the reason why these books of faith exist, because they were the only books that could not be altered given the era, given political events. These political things didn't just happen. It's just saying they use those things to take authority over people, to change the books so that they can alter the facts. But why is that important? Because books keep being altered, or what a lot of people like to call is updated or revised. You can see Job's life in the Bible. His life is like an empirical study, meaning Job experienced some things like a study, which is tested on him to set an example for us as a seminal study, or the initial act which influences the ideas presented in the observations of Job's lived experiences. Let Jesus propose it helps so that Jesus' purpose wasn't for naught. No, I said the fly. We're not doing that. We're not gonna make Jesus' purpose for nothing. It's gonna be for a reason. I'm not gonna be the one that said, "Oh well, oh well, Jesus." I'm just saying, you died for nothing. No, we're not gonna do that. If you think about Job's lived experiences, you can see how he was like, I did all these good things and I still had all these problems. Why did you do that? You even blessed me and you made me the wealthiest man in the land. And I'm now the most right man in the land. But here you are punishing me now. It went to show God is sovereign and you can't control him. You can do what you gonna do and he gonna do what he gonna do, period. So exercise your free will the way you want to, but if you exercise your free will to be in alignment with what God has for you, then you'll be better off than not. I'm just saying, that's what, if you read that book for yourself, you might come to some different understandings on your own, even if you read the first 6 chapters, because it's really repetitive. A lot of the stuff, they just laying it on thick because it's more of a poetic work than it is a literary work. Go in there and read. And it's like the youngest, Elihu, he was the youngest, but he was wise too. And he was respectful of his elders when he told his elders, look, y'all not being sympathetic to Job with y'all telling him what y'all saying, though you got some really good wisdom going there. But he telling y'all can't empathize with him because you will never know this pain. And then that pain is blinding. It's hurtful. It's covering the wisdom that he has, but only to an extent, because he wasn't so hurt that he would curse God and die, because he ain't that foolish. He said, I'm still wise. I'm wise enough not to do that. But he didn't understand some things. And Elihu, which was the youngest of them all, he said, y'all have to be understanding about the things that he don't understand. Even though he's wise, you still have to be understanding about what he don't understand and be a little bit more sympathetic to that. Even though you can't relate to it and empathize with it, you can be sympathetic to it because you don't know this pain. You don't know how he feels. Let him express how he feels and then pray for him, because that's what you should be doing, not judging them, but praying for them until God moves. But I'm just saying, these verses and multiple books in one, really, it reinforces the information constantly repeated throughout, long before readers ever get to the book where everyone learns the why of everything you read to learn in your beginnings. A lot of the times we don't, that's what we call hindsight. We going through all these motions, reading all these books that before we ever get to the book where it start to kind of make a bit more sense. Like, why did I need to know all this? Why did I read all this? It was for a purpose, but you didn't know it until you just keep on reading and let it sink in. Give it a moment. You know what I mean? Just give it a bit. It'll come to you. It's gonna hit different, and that's why in different times of our life when we're reading certain literary works, it start hitting different. It comes back to our memory different, and we're like, wait a minute, this seems oddly familiar. It seems like there's something more I can take from this to grow and help my current situation. That's why I was there. That's why I was there in the first place. I'm just saying. But what the meaning is everything in life. That's why it's so repetitive, and that's why you have so much repetition in life and everything in the cycles that people feel like it's a cycle. It's not a cycle. It's the repetition that's helping to draw your discernment to help you so you can understand that there's a twisted narrative. And this is the way it makes sense to draw you, to help you to understand the way it's going to make sense. Some people do not live long enough to know anything from hindsight. So appreciate hindsight despite scars derived from not heeding wise counsel before hindsight. So just remember to apply wise counsel henceforth. That's why you have the hindsight. That's why you was blessed to live to have the hindsight. And for as much as you can, just keep moving forward, having the benefit of now understanding. Yeah, I probably should have followed my first mind before. The outcomes would have been better. Now, moving forward, I'm going to follow my first mind. That's all that means. So just remember to apply wise counsel moving forward. You know, it's funny to me how badly people want to know what God's plans are, yet they fail to understand why not to lean towards their own understanding. For example, God said, let the dark be separated from the light. And a lot of people, they would have probably looked at it like, I don't see what you're talking about. That didn't mean he was going to stop doing what he's doing. Just because you don't understand, he's still going to do what he's doing. And then you're going to come to the epiphany like, oh, that's what you mean by don't lean to my own understanding. Got it. When God took Adam's rib and made a woman, I might have looked like maybe just, start over. Just don't, because when he did it, he did it because he was like, he looked on Adam and he saw Adam needed help. Adam needed something and he just wasn't going to do it alone. And he was like, this is the way Adam's going to always remember, not just Adam, but man. And some people would have looked on it like, man, you should just start it over. Why did I say that? Because in the Bible, it's really repetitive how that was the answer a lot of people had given. Just start over. Like when Lot was in the land, he was like, man, there's nobody there. We're just going to start over. Like, wait, don't start over. Let me try. And when we saw Noah and all the people, and God was just starting over, like, all right, I'm just going to take this group of people right here. We're going to start over fresh. It's like, that was the answer all the time. How to just start over. So I'm just saying, I'm just reminding you. But anyway, I want to challenge you to revisit the same wise events and see them differently now. Go back and see if you see it differently. See if you see it the way I'm saying it. Maybe you won't. Maybe I'm crazy. I'm just saying, it could be. I might be crazy. But this challenge makes room to exercise your time to see twisted narratives and information or facts for the purpose of everything turning for your good. So even though you don't understand these things, don't stop there. It's okay. Give God the opportunity to turn it around for your good. If he could take things that's bad and you didn't even know, and he turns it for your good, and you come out okay, how much more can he do all these twisted narratives? We seeing all these people having a whole lot of mental problems, and it's like, man, How can we turn these things around? Did you ever think for one moment that maybe it wasn't intended for you to turn things around? Maybe it went so much, it left so far left because it's the time for us to all see in such an obvious and blunt manner that is we are not in control. We're observing and we're following accordingly. And what is that we're following? I'm just saying, binge watch these shows, rewind. I don't know. Do what you got to do. But some people have looked at me funny. But please understand, I didn't start here. I was blessed to arrive here. But just as I was blessed to arrive here, I'll be blessed to keep moving onward from here. Don't wait to fully understand every detail. I tried it. It doesn't work out that way because it'll always be something you don't understand. So don't wait to understand every detail. Understand what's edifying and keep moving onward to understand it better by and by. Meaning, don't stop because you didn't fully digest everything you got. Keep going. It'll hit you. It'll hit different every time too. After the fact you got it, you'll be like, man, I read that. And I got a different meaning, a different understanding, a different vibe than I did after reading it again. But both times it was edifying and it benefited me in such a way that I can't even elaborate fully. There you go. That's what it is. Don't try to understand everything. You ever eat and want a second plate, but the first few bites into the second plate, you realize you may not have wanted as much as you put on that second plate? It hit you late, but it hit you. So look at it that way. Look at me as funny as you want, but please understand purpose. Everything is done on purpose for a purpose, but you want to be in the right place when you find out or when it hits you. So stay humble. Try my challenges. I've been blessed to help many people, but they were and will they were receptive. They were willing and receptive. Humble is the way because when you're humble, you are willing and receptive. Just what'd you say, Jackie? Just do it, whatever it is. If you're going to be stuck. Yeah. You have to understand when something is edifying you and to continue to go in that manner, even if you don't understand it fully, because you don't ever want it to be said, oh, I wish I would have followed my first mind. I'm just saying, keep going because it's edifying. I understand what you're saying, sis. I appreciate your support and your comments, your word phrasing. You be doing it, dude, for real. I'm just saying. I'm not purposely trying to turn every topic into a faith talk. I'm saying everything I've studied, psychology, business, anthropology, computer programming, gardening, my aquariums even, etc. I've learned it's not about a title of faith more so than a work or a behavior which may have strong positive correlations to a faith in God by any faith title and faith places. It's not, a lot of people overemphasize they're a Christian, they're a Muslim, they're a Baptist, they're a Protestant, or whatever, they're Catholic. It's not so much the title as much as it is your faith, your practices, the things that you're doing. And a lot of times these titles bind and conform you to a particular methodology. And when you no longer find that that's edifying, you then start to question yourself because the titles no longer fit. What would happen if you just, aside from those titles, you begin to understand what I'm saying here, and you just, start to do it this way, and then you start to go back in that Bible and read the things that Jesus said and did. Then you start to say, man, that's why That's why the narrative was being twisted so much, because I was listening, I was following, I was heeding the wrong information. I'm just saying. Um, I've read workplace studies, not trying to find anything that had any correlation to the phenomenon that I found that God is. I've read studies with healthcare. A lot of people in the workforce, they were like, well, we understand when you are in an environment where you experience workplace violence, that you can have PTSD. We also understand, we conducted studies where the stress on the job can give people cancer. It can give them digestive infections, or stop their digestive system from working properly. It can give them diabetes. It can cause fatal problems. It can also cause them to respond um, in anger all the time. And they're like, what is it that makes some people different? Because we had to take those people out from the study when it did not line up with what we knew to be true. We had to take those people out to be outliers and anomalies and phenomena. What made them an anomaly? What made them phenomenal? What made them different? And the studies came back to show that those people were praying in the workforce, even though they was like, don't bring your God here. Just like with school, they were like, don't bring your God up in here. And then they asked the people, they surveyed the people, what makes you different? Why you don't have PTSD? Why you healthy after 40 years of this same stress that killed your coworkers and your colleagues? Why are you okay? And there you have it. There were some studies, and they found in healthcare, they was like, well, these two people, they have the same problems. We're going to give these people the accurate medicine, and these people won't receive it. And some of these people over here are praying, and some of these people over here are praying. Let's test to see what the difference is. And they found that it was a significant difference in the people who pray, regardless of whether they received the medication or did not receive the medication. It was a significant difference which could not be controlled. It was only the matter of the fact that they were praying. And a lot of people have faith, but they were praying. There was something about that, something that they couldn't control, but they knew it was a stimulus. It was a factor in what controlled the outcome. Same thing with school studies. The school studies showed that a lot of people were being taught in a contrived way so that they could be controlled or predicted in what they did later. Like the Bible says, raise a child in the way it should go, so when it's grown, it will not depart. So when we are in these school environments and they're twisting the narrative saying you can do whatever you want to do, and they're supporting you to do things that's wayward, it's because they're trying to train the child in the way it should go, so when it is grown, it will not depart, because they know that that is a fact. But they saw some people weren't conforming, some people weren't compliant in that manner, and some that were compliant and conform, they later changed spontaneously without any kind of identifiers, which help people to, or observers, to understand what it was and why it was. And come to find, when they conducted the studies, prayer was a major factor, a significant difference in the outcome. We can get info about this stuff. Yeah, a lot of people say that people aren't going to read these studies. They're not going to read this information. I'm going to put it in a book for you. Yeah, it's coming. You got to read it, though. You got to read the last book I wrote. Try to, it's in there. I don't put it in there in the same way because I can't plagiarize. I have to put things differently because I can't plagiarize myself. It's so many things that I've written over the last 20 years. I try so hard to not plagiarize so that I can still get the same message out there and provide the clarity that's required without plagiarizing myself. That's why I encourage you in that first book to go and find the things that Tina Phillips has written in academia. It's free. Go read it. What'd you say? Where can I get in front of you if you want to read the study? Well, there you go. I just told you it's in the book. I referenced it in the book. Yes, ma'am. Prayer changes things. A lot of times, the reason why you put things in a book is because, one, we're constrained on time. I'm actually out of time. So let's see how you did. Yeah. Anyway, I'm out of time. The show is running long, but I'm saying these things because I didn't set out aiming to prove anything in particular. I was taught in the old ways of research. Report observed facts. This caused that. That's what that means. Then report, this happened this way, and these were the results. That is the way I was taught. And I'm not talking about it in my PhD studies, because there is where I met a great deal of significant challenges that I had to try very hard to be nice and overlook them people. But anyway, uh, if you were to think about it, we can't make people do what we want. And I wish I would have been able to help some of those PhDs to work with me instead of be so much against me. I tried to be nice as much as I could, but I couldn't keep dealing with that. But if you take a photo of yourself, cut it up into puzzle pieces. What's you say? Anyway, my husband. Anyway, if you take a picture of yourself and you cut it up into puzzle pieces and take those individual pieces. Now, erase, don't cut it out. Just erase the parts that you don't like or the parts you think are insignificant. Now put the puzzle back together again. You will see how significant the individual parts that you once classified as insignificant, irrelevant, and you don't like. You'll see how significant it is. And in doing so, you'll start to learn how significant you as an individual are. Even though people tell you you're so little, you don't matter, you're replaceable, you're not. You're not replaceable, and no one is trying to replace you because they can't. It just cannot be done. What'd you say? Make sense until next time, folks. Share. Yes, please share and like and subscribe. A lot of times we can't reach people without someone else's help. Word of mouth is the best way to reach a lot of people. And I'm on this platform so I can reach more people at once without draining myself, without killing myself, without straining myself so much to the point where I'm like, some stuff gonna make sense, some stuff ain't, because I'm tired. I'm sleepy. You're just gonna have to get it in passing, you know? So I encourage you, go and find my academic writings, find the free stuff, get the book. It's in there where I show you some of the things and some of the ways that you can find some of the things I wrote. But I need you to understand, I've been writing for over 20 years. I'm trying very hard not to plagiarize myself. And that is hard to do when it's like, what more can I write? How else can I phrase it? How can I rephrase it? You know, how can I make it more simple? How can I reach people without straining myself and drawing myself out when I have other things I have to do? And there's some people who need my help that I can't get to if I'm too tired. Thanks, sis. I appreciate you. So if you read the book, it's different. It's written differently. The next book will be more in alignment with traditional literary works. But this book, I was blessed to write it this way for a reason. It's on purpose. So please go and read it. And what is that book again? It's called Generational Wealth, Information Asymmetry, and Your Success. How environment where there's information asymmetry, meaning some people got information you don't have. Do you understand? And you will understand when you read the book. That was the beginning anyway. That's the way it's going to be anyway. That is unalterable fact. You can't change it. So you need people. That's what you got to understand. And this book is going to help you to reinforce that understanding. It's going to help you to understand why you should follow your first mind and do something, even though you don't think you good enough to be able to do it. Don't let people tell you that lie. In the second book, I'm going to help you better understand why it's a lie. All right. Thank you, Jackie. Girl, you doing it, sis. You really doing it. I really appreciate you. But a lot of people may not understand it the first time they read it. They may have to read it and get frustrated, and something happen later on where they're like, man, I think I read it in that book. That shit crazy. And then you go back and read it again and start to read it all the way through this time. You might come to that conclusion. And why did I say that? Because a lot of times when I was helping people who couldn't understand things, people who had learning disabilities, who had blockages, even elite people who were like, no, that don't make sense. Even though they were all smart and everything, but I'm telling you, it'll hit you later. Just like you watched in this video where I told you sometimes you read information and it hit different at different times because it's a different perspective, a different experience that you encountered. You gotta trust. Get the book. I'm not going to be able to tell you everything in 1 hour, and I can't even come back on and tell you the same thing on different days. That's why I was like, I can't stress myself with that part. You have to take the initiative at some point. And I put it in a video to make it easier for those people who are not going to read no matter what I say. I'm just saying, it's a lot of people. So go back and binge watch my videos. I also have some PowerPoint presentations. Sometime in those videos, I'll do some more, but I'm putting these things in a book for those people who are going to read, who are willing to just try to read it. I'm also going to try to put it in an ebook, like my husband was saying. I'm going to try to get him to do it. Put it in an ebook so people can access it a little bit easier and more willfully without having to get a tangible physical copy of the book. But a lot of times people who are more reluctant, they need that tangible copy. They need that physical thing. And that's why you have to, as a psychologist, you just talking to people, but they need something tangible to take home so they could put value in it. And that's what I did. I gave you something tangible, something of great value, even though it's not as expensive as it could be. It's so much value in it, and it's giving you something to hold on to so you can say, okay, I have something tangible, something physical. And once you read it, you might not need to reread it again because it's just that easy to and applicable to life. It's easy to understand, and it's just that applicable to how you live your life every day in every way. So, when God do something, it's well done. So I'm just happy that I was able to be blessed enough to do that thing. So check it out and go and check out those free academic writings. And that's my time for today. So remember, mental health is physical wealth.
Mental health